Welcome back to RizPod.live. We are talking about StreamYard versus Zoom today. And we're super excited about this episode because we are big fans of StreamYard. And if you ever hang out with us, you'll probably hear a lot of things we say about Zoom being an event platform. Oh, no offense to Zoom. If it's used well, it can be used well, but no.
Harrison Kramer, good example.
Yes,
Virtual
exactly.
magician.
Yes.
That said, yeah, it's a Zoom excellent meeting tool, not an excellent event tool.
Yes. Well, it's funny because a lot of people just automatically think that Zoom is where all virtual events have to exist, and
It's
that's
tough. Or
the thing.
Teams, which is
Yeah.
like worse than Zoom. I don't know.
I will say that Teams is getting a little bit better with their AI stuff, in terms of productivity and note taking and same with Zoom. But they're meeting
Yeah,
platforms. They're not event platforms. So yeah, let's get into it.
sure. So what is the title on this? It says TF is StreamYard. What is TF?
Remember on past episodes, John, you said you write them, so you wrote
Oh,
this.
right, right. So
TF.
what is, I think the TF is short for what?
Yeah.
So what is StreamYard?
Yes. It's probably I like to you wrote iPhone of streaming studios because it is one of the top ones. I've used others. I keep coming back to StreamYard. It's just so simple, and their commitment to the ease of use has really been beneficial for me and my clients and everything. But I like to say it's like a virtual it is not like it is a virtual studio, but
Yeah.
imagine you being in like a newsroom and I'm behind the scenes at this as a producer and people are just on screen doing their thing and it's branded, not
Yeah,
just
like
black
like
background.
like if you're watching this video like it is right now, I was hoping during this episode, since you're such a StreamYard wizard, you can kind of show people some of the things that are available too.
Oh yeah.
As in like adding in banners, tickers. But yeah, why I was saying it's like the iPhone of streaming studios. There's also like the clunky streaming studios. So like the most powerful, best known streaming studio out there is called OBS, Open Broadcasting Software, I think.
Yes.
Um, it is one of those screens with like 50,000 buttons on it, and you can do anything. Like you can create professional looking movies with it, but like it is just about impossible to figure out how to use it, especially just for a first timer. Whereas with
Yeah.
StreamYard, like literally, if you can use an iPhone, you can probably use StreamYard and go live on YouTube. You can pick up StreamYard and go live on YouTube in like under 5 minutes. I'm not even exaggerating
Right. Exactly.
whatsoever. So it's, and StreamYard, unlike OBS, with StreamYard is no downloads. You just go to a website. It just runs. It's got to have a solid internet connection. But so
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, it is like the user friendly streaming service.
Yeah, and it is very easy to use. You can level up. And like if you're watching this episode, if you go to our YouTube channel or go to rizpod.live, you can see all the videos embedded there. You'll see that it's branded. And I think a lot of people think, well, I'll just use Zoom or I don't want to pay for another thing. But it's branded for our podcast and any other event you do, as long as you pay. I mean, I'm on full disclosure, I'm on the pro plan, so I do pay $50 a month for it. But it's worth it because it's definitely going to present whatever I'm producing in the studio in a more professional manner than just the StreamYard duck, which we love. Puddles, Puddles, the duck in the right hand corner, right?
There you go.
It's that.
But yeah, and general like kind of more overview, like what is a streaming studio, I guess, for people that don't know, if you've only
Mhm.
used Zoom. So like Zoom and Teams are meeting tools where you're like directly connected face to face, generally with all your audience members. It's really just the camera, and you can usually bring like everybody on screen. Whereas StreamYard is, or streaming studio is more for like when you're wanting to create like a branded professional video that's streaming to people,
Mhm.
instead of being a meeting with people. So you're like, it's more like kind of unidirectional, kind of more
Yeah.
like it's more one way instead of like Zoom is like
Yes. Multiple
everybody.
videos. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's get
multiple
everyone.
videos all at the same time with a Brady Bunch layout and whatever, right? But
Have you ever been on a Zoom where someone didn't have their camera set or their microphone muted on an event? Have you been on one before?
yeah, yeah,
Yes, me
absolutely.
too. And it's distracting and very unprofessional, and it basically eliminates any possible reuse of the video because you have
Right.
someone going crazy in the background and John, you're trying to say something, and I'm like, whatever, who cares?
Yeah, and then people can be trying to come in and then like stuff pops up on the screen like this person just entered, or people like putting chat messages and things are popping up, and so
Mhm.
it's just like you as an event creator, it doesn't give you the ownership over the content like you'd normally want, right?
Right.
And so when people think a lot of the time still, when people think online events or virtual events, they think it has to be on Zoom. And it's like there's so many better ways to get these things done.
Mhm.
So go to
Mhm.
back, I think it's episode 1, virtual events don't have to suck. I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
Find that at rizpod.live. Uh, but I think hopefully I'd love if this episode was live right now because we'd ask people if that's kind of clear what the difference between StreamYard and Zoom is.
Yeah.
I think I can imagine for people like figuring out what that actually means is probably one of the biggest leaps.
Mhm. You know, it's funny because people probably have seen a lot of StreamYard events, but they don't know that it's StreamYard. They're just like, wow, this is like a really cool looking event. Like it's branded with the colors and there's stuff like, streaming across the screen like that and like calls to action. People are just like, oh, it's an online event. Look at what I'm watching. Until
Yeah.
you go to that one bad event, you're like, ooh, that's different. That's something
Yeah.
else. So,
Moving on, like so next couple sections, the pros and cons of each, right?
yeah.
Um, so Zoom, it's like I'd say fully DIY, right?
Yeah.
Do it yourself. Anybody and their 12-year-old cousin can get it done,
Yes.
right? But yeah, DIY, it's cheap.
Yeah.
It also kind of looks cheap. Uh Probably you're not going to need to do any speaker training, like, or you're more likely to not need it 'cause probably every speaker you're going to have on has used Zoom before, right?
Mhm.
Still recommended to do speaker training because speakers, as we know, go back
Yes.
to some earlier episodes at rizpod.live. There's some training speakers is just about always needed. Zoom does have breakout rooms. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on breakout rooms, Marissa?
If you're not very intentional with how the breakout rooms are supposed to happen, or you don't have someone there knowing the purpose of them, then they could be a complete disaster. And that does require planning, that requires someone additional besides the host, because you have to be able to manage the person who cannot get in the breakout room or doesn't understand that they need to have their camera on and talk, or they're muted or whatever, bunch of things that can go on. Yeah, I don't love breakout rooms. Like we do that sometimes on our meeting call for our event professionals, but it's only dependent if there's like 30 people on it. But if it's like 7, like we just talk
Yeah,
together because there's no need for it. But yeah, I think not necessary. It just depends on the purpose of them.
yeah. Other things, Zoom has a lot of built-in interaction features like polling, Q&A, the
Mhm.
world's worst chat system. Uh, so those are there, and so if you're definitely wanting to do some interaction with people live, then it's nice to have those in Zoom.
Yeah. I
Uh,
will say that the chat, if you are a host, you can see all the chats, even the private chats. So be mindful of that
is it
when you're
as a
yes.
Zoom you can see the private chats?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not like
Oh boy.
live, but you get the chat transcript because you're the host of the
Wow. I had no idea. That's creepy.
Yeah.
The
Isn't that weird?
host can see the private chats. That is something we were really careful with BuzzIt chats. When people private message, it's
Yeah,
always private.
private, yeah.
That's kind of creepy. Okay, good to know.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't use Zoom for that. I mean, and I think the pandemic definitely thrust Zoom into everyone's, living room. Everyone is using it to have their Thanksgiving dinner, meeting and stuff like that. But it's definitely, it's a great tool for that, but not for an event.
Yeah. Other things, audience size is limited,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Always on Zoom. Lower
Regulated, because you can pay
regulated, yeah.
for more. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
right.
pay for
But
more.
yeah, whereas StreamYard, you can stream to every all the 8 billion people in the world could be watching us right now, right?
Yes.
Um, but uh what else? Just lower show up rates. Like people
Yes.
complain, like number one complaint I hear about online events is like, oh, but nobody will show up. It's like, where did you host it? Like on Zoom. It's
Zoom.
like, what can people access that with? Only their laptops.
Yeah.
Great. So
Yes.
why do you think people didn't show up? Because you made it
Mhm.
impossible to join.
Yeah, and even I think it's mobile. You have to download the app if you can have the app, but like it's always clunky. Like I use Zoom regularly, and every time I'm joining from my phone, it's annoying. Like I'm like not connected properly. I have to re-download the new update. Like it's constantly updating, and I'm just like, this is I don't even or it doesn't connect to my Bluetooth properly. So I'm just like, I'm gonna exit out.
And it's
Like
just a
this is
huge drain too. It's
yeah,
never, yeah, it's just not built for mobile, right?
yeah,
And so
no,
people don't do it. Like it is there, but people don't do it. It's
yeah.
like yeah, it's tough. Uh Other things, just like it's Zoom is a little bit stressful. Like just so many things can go wrong, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
One thing you just mentioned, like everybody shows up late, because guess what? Not everybody uses Zoom every day. And so they had to, even if they tried to be on time, Zoom wants to update itself every like 3 days. So
Yes.
if you haven't been using Zoom every day, then probably when you click the link, it's like, oh, you got to download the new version. Like, oh,
Yeah, and then you lose people because they have to re-download the new version, and then it's 15 minutes later, and they're like, "Oh, I just missed it. I'm not even gonna sign in."
yeah. And then so people's normal fix for this is spending the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes being like, oh, we're just going to wait for people to get in the door. And then so the people that are already in the door are like, okay, I'm out of here. Like,
Right.
and then so,
Awkward.
yeah. Yeah.
No. Yes. Those are the cons. I think we have a lot of cons.
Another pro, we talked about like polling and stuff built in.
Mhm.
So there's those good things. Other thing is like full registration. You can do like complete
Yeah.
registration for an event on it as well. And hey, new pro, if you're if you're a creeper, you can read people's private chats. I didn't put that on the list, but that's an interesting one. Um, Other things. So moving on,
I don't care to read people's chats, so
that's a weird
that's
one.
what I've heard. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure, like, I mean, it's gotta go somewhere. Maybe they changed that in one of their 5,000 updates, so
Somebody's got to fact check us, I guess, on that one.
yeah.
I'm just gonna say stuff. uh, so StreamYard pros and cons. Obviously, we like it. Hey, if what anybody was wondering what that duck looks like,
Yeah, Puddles. Hi, Puddles. Yeah, and you can go to rizpod.live, free trial of StreamYard and try it out, but anyways, that's just a little plug for
nice.
StreamYard. Puddles. What Puddles is gonna tell you that that's like kind of cute and fun. StreamYard is really professional. I've heard of the organizations that use it. And I worked on a project back in 2020. It was the UN. One of the
Wow.
UN's like departments was using StreamYard. So I'm like,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
Some really popular tech companies using it for their event. Like a
University of Notre
newspaper.
Dame uses it for their events.
Yeah. So why not you, no matter what size of business you are? Like, why wouldn't you use it if these big companies are?
Yeah, and
They're
hey,
not
the
using Zoom.
smallest companies too. Like you can find like single like solopreneurs out there that are
Mhm.
streaming on a regular basis, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes their shows look way better than those Zoom ones
Yeah.
because they've branded it. They took a little bit of time, and w- we'll have another show of like on or another episode about on camera presence, and I think that's what a lot of people there's two things, setting up your studio and then your on camera presence, and that I think is definitely a lot of people just end up not doing virtual events because there's so many things to think about. But yeah, it's you can make it look good even if you look nervous and your on camera presence isn't great.
Yeah.
So
But what do you mean by professional? Like we talked, I know you've
Yeah,
been showing the ticker at the bottom, so we have this like kind of CNN. If you're just listening to this CNN style kind of slider going by that says go to rizpod.live for show notes.
yeah.
Other branding elements are like we're together on a frame with our logo, etc.
Mhm.
Um, and then like the background colors, and then just like what it makes it is like just so reusable.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, instead of just like, try to record Zoom and then clip that into a good video afterwards, like, good luck.
Yeah. Right.
It's just because then you have to add in all the branding elements and, like, it's just so much work, but with StreamYard, because it's there from the beginning, all of a sudden, "Look at those beautiful flowers. Thank you." It just yeah, it's on brand, like,
Yeah.
just native, right? Um,
Mhm. Yeah, I'm just if you're watching this episode, I'm just changing things in the background because I just wanna play around
I think we should always
because
have flowers.
okay. Okay, flowers. The branding could be many different ways. The tickers, the overlays that you're currently seeing on the video. Um,
Chat pop-ups when people are watching on YouTube or other social media, you can bring those up too, right? I'm excited to
yeah,
start doing this show live and do those.
yeah,
Uh, but so that'll be fun. When you can bring people's entire profile image, like there we go. You can
yeah,
bring people's entire profile image, name, and their questions, comments on the screen. Super
yes,
engaging way to just like reach out to people through the stream just to let them know that they're there and just share with the other audience members that other people are there watching, right? And
yeah.
include the experience. You don't have to put somebody on video for them to be interacting with you, right?
Yeah, like I could do a full video of just me and you could still be there talking to me, John. Talk.
I'm here, Marissa. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. Or you can have, someone in the background just being like the Wizard of Oz chatting as well
Awesome.
as like a background person. So
Mm, yeah, and then yeah, so speaking professional, one other thing that just is makes it more professional and lowers stress is you can pre-record everything
yeah.
and then upload them in. So like when you're doing an event with multiple speakers, if you have more than 10 speakers, guaranteed one of them is going to have tech issues or just a life issue and not show up that day.
Yes.
But so you can either have people live with pre-recorded backups, or you can just have everybody pre-recorded and do
Mhm.
just about the whole show pre-recorded, but make it look live. And then it's just like you can actually just enjoy the event
Yeah.
uh, and have it run by a pro like Marissa.
Yes, thank you for the plug. John, yeah, I've done both. I've done all actually live, mix of pre-recorded, fully pre-recorded live. And one of the things I think if people are the reason why people do that is one that their on-camera presence isn't great or they're worried about timing of speakers showing up, or if they're a solo person, they want to be able to be engaging in the chat because they're fully present talking to like if you were on my show, John, and I'm talking to you, like I can't always look down at the chat and like monitor it if there's a question coming in. So people pre-record and then have, and I've done this in big conferences too, like where a speaker and a guest is there and then the speaker shows up live in the chat, right? Or they do a Q&A at the
Yeah.
end. So their presentation is pre-recorded and then they're like, "Hey, okay, welcome back. Now Q&A." So,
Yeah. Allows
a
them
lot
to
of
be
different
more
ways to do
interactive, right?
it. Mhm.
Uh, Otherwise, yeah, higher show up rates because you can stream to anything. You can stream
Anywhere.
to, you can multi-stream. What do they call it? Is it multi-streaming?
Yeah, I think so.
You can stream to like
Multi-stream.
all your social channels at once. So you can hit people anywhere. So much better chances, making it easier for people to get in.
Yes.
Not just through one super clunky app that doesn't work on mobile devices. Uh, so
Yes.
getting those higher show up rates. Uh,
And I
yeah,
think one of the things, people are like, "Well, I'm not on LinkedIn or I'm not on YouTube or my channel isn't built out." Okay, you could still record as if you are, stream it to that, and then put that on your website. So,
yeah,
like that's for me, it's like it's really about, back to the strategy. That's why we need to figure out what is the purpose of this event. Don't just go live or go on Zoom and you're like, "Hey, look at my event," and it's done. What are you gonna do with it?
Yeah. And
What's
that's,
purpose?
yeah. And one of those other places you can stream is to your own website.
Yeah.
Like what better destination for your audience than your website?
Yeah, exactly. So
Uh,
good.
so one, I guess, kind of like downsides, maybe speakers will need a little bit more training, probably. But really, how long does it take you to actually tech check somebody if you're setting them up on StreamYard for the first time?
Um, less than 10 minutes.
Okay.
We build in 45 for those stragglers, for the people that have issues.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting how sometimes that doesn't happen. I mean, very rarely does it happen because you over communicate. Make sure you're set up this way. Make sure you have a light on. Make sure your internet's good. Like, and that's a sign of a good producer. You don't just expect them to show up 10 minutes before you go live and it's going to work out. Not always. Doesn't
Yeah.
always happen. Um, and the common problems with sound or video, like over time, it's the same thing. Like it's your audio's stuck in another program. You have to do a full reset. Before when we were recording an episode, I had audio problems. I just did a quick little check and did a reset of my settings and it worked. So it's I mean, the ease of use for StreamYard, that's one of their pillars. They try to make it easier for guests and speakers, and even producers to figure it out. So,
Yeah. And even, yeah, with guides and everything, it is
mhm.
really pretty simple. As long as somebody is not totally technically inept, they should be
Yeah.
able to get their way through it.
If you've
Um,
used Zoom, you can use StreamYard. How about that?
yeah, I think so.
So,
I think it's actually a lot easier.
mhm.
Maybe people just have more practice with Zoom, but
Yeah.
uh, so final thing, like kind of like negatives about StreamYard, a little bit overall less interaction capability, I'd say.
Yes.
Like, um, I'd say the chat is actually better because you're using like YouTube chat, etc. That has like it's tied to profiles. It's more interesting, more engaging for people.
Mhm.
Uh, there is no Q&A like Zoom
Yeah.
has. Like,
Right.
it's just something you can do in the chat. It's
Mhm.
harder sometimes, but no,
That's
no,
not built into StreamYard. Like, you can do it on the native, like, social like YouTube. You can do a poll if you have that capability,
yeah,
but, yeah, no, it's not built into StreamYard. I eventually imagine it's going to be because a lot of people are asking for it.
yeah,
So, yeah, no
uh,
polling,
yeah.
no breakout rooms.
Who likes breakout rooms anyways?
I
But
mean, you
it's
could have
more
breakout
like,
rooms. They're
yeah,
just, like, different URLs, but, it's different.
yeah, and I think they have a registration system as well, but also quite basic.
Mhm.
But in, yeah, overall comparison, it's just like if you're doing a meeting, that should be on Zoom.
Yes.
If you're doing an event, you should be considering a streaming studio, and StreamYard to be your number one, like easy, while
Mhm.
being high, just like professional grade, but still easy to use, right? Like
Yeah.
easy access.
Yes. Yeah,
Anything else? They got to send us more mugs now. I think they got to send you a duck. I've got a duck around here somewhere. Um,
yeah, I
Thanks to
have
Julie Riley if she's listening. Still appreciate the duck.
do not have a duck. I don't have a duck. I have a hoodie and a shirt,
That's cool.
but I am StreamYard approved producer, so how about that? Yeah, overall comparison, who wins for you?
StreamYard. 'Cause I
StreamYard.
like
Yeah,
events, not meetings.
yeah,
I do meetings on Zoom. Hey, I do them all the time.
yeah.
It's just like I just wouldn't host an event there.
My 2024 goal is to do all my meetings on StreamYard.
Right.
You don't have to record it, just come into the studio. Then you already see the benefit, like, if you're a potential client or whatever, you already see it. It's there.
And it's, yeah, less scary. Totally.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, but I'd say StreamYard, like you're going to be look for an event, you're looking more professional. Like what event professional doesn't want to look more professional, more on brand? Like
Right.
controlling content seems to be the number one thing event organizers care about, right? They
Yeah.
want to have control of the image. So like there it is.
Yeah.
It's also less stress. We know event organizers are the most stressed people in the world. Uh, and so you got higher show up rates. The only thing I would say, that's going to be a super big plug, a little bit less interaction capability with StreamYard, but so that's
Mm.
why you pair it with a good event site like BuzzIt, where you can have that interaction capability at the same time.
Right. Nice plug, John.
Pretty good, right?
And I will say, as a producer, BuzzIt is very easy to integrate StreamYard into. So it's definitely a great tool to use and make your event way better than just let's go on Zoom. Yeah, no. So it's all about sharing this information and, having people review the show notes on
I
rizpod.live.
think you win this episode.
Yeah, that's our competition. Yeah. So any last words about StreamYard versus Zoom?
No, I think I've been super clear.
Yes.
Forget Zoom, everybody. Like, I love Zoom. I love Zoom.
Yeah.
But it's meetings. It's not events.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, thank you, John, for giving all your insight and allowing me to talk about my favorite tool and what really drives my business. We'll see you next time on RizPod.
Yeah.
Visit rizpod.live for
There
all
you
the
go.
show notes and freebies.
Okay. Till next time, guys. Bye.
Bye.